This is the most important thing written on the Piri Reis map, a paragraph in Ottoman Turkish tucked in the corner. You've probably seen this map. People have called it the most accurate map of the 16th century, proof of a seafaring civilization tens of thousands of years old, proof the Earth was visited by aliens. It's the one document the whole lost civilization case keeps coming back to.
One of the famous maps is the Piri Reis map, which was created by a Turkish admiral called Piri Reis in the year 1513. Piri Reis writes in that map that it is in his own handwriting that he based it on more than 100 older source maps.
This video is about one document and what it says when you actually read it. The answers are on the map. People just don't read it. Start in the corner. The most important thing on this map is the paragraph there. Historians number it Inscription 6. I'm going to call it the source list because that's what it is. I have used 20 maps and Mapamundi, 8 such kafagires, 1 of the Arab maps of India, 4 maps made by the Portuguese, and finally a map drawn by Columbus. Piri Reis says it himself. He took other people's maps and brought them to one scale. He didn't find this map. He put it together from other maps. Here's Hancock's claim. The maps Piri Reis copied weren't ordinary maps. They were survivals from a lost civilization preserved for thousands of years in the Library of Alexandria. But Piri Reis names his sources and none of them are ancient. 8 Ptolemaic textbook maps, 4 recent Portuguese charts, a map drawn by Columbus within living memory. Hancock got the Library of Alexandria from Charles Hapgood in 1966, and Hapgood got it in part from the map itself. The source list really does say the oldest charts go back to the time of Alexander the Great. But that last step is his, not the primary source. Mackintosh, who wrote the authoritative book on this map, checked the map and everything else Piri Reis wrote, and the claim simply isn't there.
And there's one word in the same line worth stopping on. Piri Reis says those 8 maps go back to the time of Alexander, and he gives them a name. Kafiria. Sounds like it should mean something, the title of some old mysterious class of map, old enough to carry lost knowledge. It isn't.
Every scholar who can read the original reaches the same conclusion. It's a spelling mistake. Kakfiria is the Arabic word for geography. Geografia, spelled wrong. In Arabic, the letter for the GH sound is identical to another, except for one dot on the top. Drop the dot, swap one more letter, and geografia turns into kafirgia, a word that means nothing. Those 8 kakfirias were ordinary geography maps, copies of Claudius Ptolemy's atlas, reprinted all over Renaissance Europe. Nothing ancient about them. People call them ancient anyway because of one more mix-up, the same one that put Alexander's name on the map. There are 2 famous Ptolemies and they lived 300 years apart. Claudius Ptolemy, the mapmaker, worked around 150 AD. Ptolemy I was one of Alexander the Great's generals. Piri Reis confused the two. He thought his maps reached all the way back to Ptolemy I in Alexander's day. They didn't, but that one slip is where the time of Alexander on the source list comes from, and it's the line Hapgood built his library on. And none of this is new. The first scholar to make sense of this map, Paul Kale, worked it out in 1933. Jafaria is a mistake for geografia, geography. That tells us where the sources came from. Now let's look at the map itself. The Caribbean section is the one Hancock points to the most often. In 2019, he said this island, east of Florida, shows the Bimini Road, a line of stone blocks of the Bahamas, drawn while they were still above water in the Ice Age. Piri Reis labeled that coast himself. Right where Hancock points, the island he reads as the Bahamas, there are 2 place names, Porta Grande and Cau Punta Orofai. Both are Columbus's from his second voyage. Mackintosh checked every surviving chart from the period. These 2 names appear on only one map on Earth, this one, which puts the spot Hancock calls the Bimini Road in Cuba, not the Bahamas, copied name for name from a map by Christopher Columbus. Not 12,000 years ago, the work of a man who died in 1506. There is one small mystery here. How does an Ottoman admiral end up with a map by Columbus? The inscription says it came off a Spanish prisoner captured by Piri Reis' uncle, who claimed he'd sailed with Columbus 3 times. He may have exaggerated, but the place names hold either way. And there's one more detail that pins this section to Columbus's lifetime, not the Ice Age. Look at how Cuba is drawn. On the 1513 map, Cuba isn't an island. It's attached to the mainland. That's Columbus's mistake. He was so sure Cuba was the edge of Asia that on June 12, 1494, he sent a notary from ship to ship to make his whole crew swear to it. Anyone who ever took it back would have his tongue cut out. The map copies that error exactly, and you can watch it get corrected. Piri Reis made a second map in 1528, and by then, ships had sailed all the way around Cuba. So on the 1528 map, Cuba is an island. The map kept up with what explorers were learning. A 12,000-year-old map wouldn't carry Columbus's personal blunder, and wouldn't quietly fix itself 15 years later. So, the ancient maps weren't ancient. They were Columbus's first rough charts of the Caribbean, from around 1495. And the originals are lost, which means that this corner of an Ottoman map is the closest thing left on Earth to Columbus's own lost cartography. This is what I try to do on this channel, go to the document and read it. If you like that, subscribe, because we haven't finished reading this one, and there's still the bottom of the map. It's the part that Hancock and Hapgood read as Antarctica, mapped before the ice. 2 coasts drawn as one. The top is Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, Cananéia, the Portuguese names running south in the right order, right where they sit on a real map. The Portuguese sailed that coast and named it. Then it bends into a huge empty continent across the bottom of the map. That part isn't a discovery. Every mapmaker in the 1500s drew a giant southern landmass down there. One had to exist, to balance the globe. And Piri ran the coast of Brazil straight into it. That invented continent is what Hapgood calls Antarctica. And it's where we find Inscription 10. This country is barren. Everything is desolate. Large serpents are found here. The Portuguese infidels did not land on these shores. These shores are also said to be very hot. The Portuguese named the coast they sailed Brazil. They never landed on the empty stretch below it because there was barely anything there. Hot, barren, half-invented, not an ice cap. And Piri Reis wasn't the only map to do this. They all did. That's the giveaway. No 2 of them drew the southern continent the same way, because none of them had actually seen it. So the lost civilization writers kept a handful whose guesses happened to resemble Antarctica. Piri Reis among them, and ignored the dozens that didn't. Real maps of a real coast would agree with each other. These don't. That isn't evidence, it's shopping for it. The shape was never the real story. This map sat forgotten in a palace library for 400 years. Not hidden, not suppressed, just ignored. And being ignored is the only thing that saved it. Piri Reis was drawing this map for an empire whose government, the Porte, the Sultan, and his court had no use for what he did. In the same century, Spain and Portugal each ran a government office where each voyage's findings got added to a single master chart, kept up to date by paid cartographers. The Ottoman state had nothing like that, and didn't want it. As Svat Susek puts it, Piri Reis maps represented a world that lay beyond the horizon of the Porte's ambition. The map was rolled up and shelved. As for Piri Reis, around 1553, in his 80s, he lost a sea battle. The governor of Egypt reported him to the Sultan. He died never knowing that the map he'd drawn was still sitting where he'd left it. Susek calls it a strange map whose mutilated remains lay forgotten in the library of Tokapi Palace. And there it stayed, in a storeroom nobody had properly catalogued until 1929, when the palace was being turned into a museum and the director found it. It reached Paul Kale, who, by luck, had spent the previous years on Piri Reis' other book, the Sailing Manual. He knew the hand the moment he saw it, and he caught what no one had in 4 centuries. The map says, in writing, that it was partially copied from a chart by Columbus. So what does the Piri Reis map actually say? It tells you where every line on it came from, and what every piece of land really is. Piri Reis wrote it down himself in 1513 on the parchment. We just didn't read it.